All right. Jack and I just wanted to introduce this kind of crazy theory. Let's look at the Iran Israel Trump thing from two different sides. One as the Trump show with the marketing and the spin, and the other as what it seems like reports are telling us. With this attack, he played it as it was going in and just surprise attack and just taking him out and blah 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 blah. In order to do this without congressional approval, which obviously he doesn't care to do, which he has certain ways to do things, but we all know that's a game anyway. And he did this basically in coordination with good old Benji. There's their partnership, their storyline, their development in Gaza and everything else, the family ties from Jared and him, the Godfather thing, the fact that this real estate development in Gaza was discussed long before October 7th ever happened. Things like that. Then all of a sudden, Benji has this world crusade wanting to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. That was already a program that was completely stopped until Donald Trump released them from that obligation of stopping, is essentially why we're here in the first place. So that paints to me a very, very clear picture of the Trump show as a purely manipulated subject matter. Iran, bad, nuclear, nobody wants them. Duh. Okay, so that's the marketability for the storyline from the beginning. He gives his red meat people what he wants and takes anything Obama, throws it out the window, even though a lot of the stuff was really, really good for us and protected us, like the Iran nuclear deal. It also called out, in the process of the Iran nuclear deal, it called out with the countries that signed and didn't, it calls out the intentions of other countries and what they hope to do in that whole subject line, in that whole storyline. Now, here we are, fast forward to this overnight thing that happened, inserting us in a war in the Middle East that all of his people swore that was the reason he wasn't war, everything will end and blah, 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 blah. And everyone's afraid of him and all that other stuff. So all of this stuff goes on as he's making these manly men, now he's going to play it off. They went in, they bombed these 3 nuclear sites. There were submarines involved that shot a bunch of Tomahawk missiles. So they were underground bunkers. So they hit them with the bunker busters, and they hit them over and over and over again because one from above wouldn't do it, which is the way to do it. And that was, I give credit, that was actually, but it was obvious. Anyway, needless to say, it's painted as a heroic world time mission because one of the things he's been focusing on a lot lately is getting himself a Nobel Peace Prize. Perfect example of that is the Pakistani, battle that worked itself out. They negotiated their own peace, and Trump has put his name all over it and said, I did this, I did this, I did this. I should get a Nobel Peace Prize for doing specifically this. Both of the countries spoke up and said he had nothing to do with it. Shut the hell up. Stop lying. And the very next day, he's out saying he did it again. So this is the storyline, and this is why I keep saying you have to look at the whole thing as a Trump show. So we have the bombers taking off in the middle of the night with the refuelers behind them and all this secretive stuff as he's out doing these public things. I don't know if I'm going to get involved. I don't know. I know a secret. And now he's painting it like he's a hero. His storyline, once again, contradicts other information that ends up coming out, which is these specific locations have been emptied out for months now. They were empty. There was no any of the stuff they're saying they saved the world from wasn't there. It was already moved to another location, which means 2 things. There will be an excuse for continued involvement, probably including boots on the ground. Congratulations, Republicans. This is what you voted for. This is what you get when you don't research. Well, anyway, and it will probably be a long-term thing. Of course, because that's what Benji wants. And what business? Oh, it was Benji's business because the danger of them having nuclear weapons because of a treaty that was torn up that Trump tore. Okay, anyway. So now we have the storyline of Vladimir Putin, who has supplied Iran through this whole entire thing with the 4 H's and everything else, who actually, after it was torn up, bragged about landing the largest Russian military transport plane in Tehran, specifically delivering missing pieces of what they were building that they were now allowed to build. So the storyline is big and scary, and yes, they should not have ever had that opportunity to do it, and that problem was solved. The arsonist standing with a water hose saying, pat me on the back, give me a Nobel Peace Prize. So now they're writing it as this big successful thing. It was in and out, no boots on the ground. That's the way Trump does things. Now everyone's going to be afraid of Trump. He's a hero. Give him the Nobel Peace Prize. Put his face on Mount Rushmore. How about just the $100 bill? How about naming this after him, naming that after him, naming this after him? How about naming that after him? Anyway, this is what we're looking at, following the storyline. So how it's going to be sold from here on out will be the scripts being handed to the supposed generals with all the medals, talking about, of course, like every meeting with Donald Trump has to begin with, well, first I have to start with how because of your amazing leadership, we haven't had any problems in the world since you took the helm because of the fear. Anyway, yes, 100,000 children are unalive, but let me just wrap up by saying, no, don't worry about that whole child thing. I know you could solve it with a phone call, but let me get back to what's important. Your leadership, Mr. President, Mr. Cherished, that's what it is. Like I said, a very bad TV show. So now the painting of the pictures have begun. How much of a hero, blah, 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 blah. But how humiliating is it that the information's already leaked, that all of those sites, most of those sites were empty. There wasn't much actual radioactive material shown. Once all this was done, it would be a mess like Chernobyl, right? Like Chernobyl, radioactive waste everywhere, right? Surprise attack taking out all this program. There would be a big mess, right? Once again, logic, not politics. So where is everything? The picture will be painted. He's a brilliant hero, and everyone should always not question him, and that's why he is who he is. This is the part of the show to bring as many people as they can back to him, because then he has the opportunity to see all the other stuff that I'm doing that it really destroyed a lot of lives. Ignore, because look what I saved. A problem that I created a long time ago. As if during the first season of the Trump show, he anticipated a second season. If he just had the right characters in line. But here's what we know is happening in the real world as a result. See, his ego-filled asshole bully on a school ground, when with Zelensky and everything else, shook the entire world up. His tariffs and everything else cemented that entire world being shaken up against the United States of America. Since then, most of the world has recognized it was not the citizens, it's this group. So we, the 99%, have unified worldwide. That is the protest that you're seeing, and you will continue to see on July 4th, the No Kings protest and everything else. So I suggest everybody get involved all they can. This is crazy. This is dangerous. But the whole world has each other's backs and is protecting each other. And Iran knows that too, as long as they don't do too much. So have faith. Logic and calmer heads will prevail. And the military will decline unlawful orders that go against their oath they took and against the Constitution of this already great country. And remember to stay diligent, to stay educated, but to be kind, because we are all in this together. And we can make it through this, united, no matter what color hat we wear. God bless.